Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for the next video concerning Avalanche Press's Great War at Sea series with specific reference to the Jutland game. Now in my last video I looked at the basic combat system for resolving ship to ship and fleet to fleet combat. Now we're going to move on to look at the advanced tactical system, which despite its name is actually not too different. In fact, in most respects, it is pretty similar to the basic combat system, but they've added a layer of maneuvering through the tactical map here. But other than that, for the most part, things are pretty much the same. There is a much more involved sequence of events that players have to follow. So to illustrate this, I have set up one of the Jutland battle scenarios. Now, this is the preliminary encounter between the British battle cruisers led by Admiral David Beatty and the German battle cruisers led by Admiral Franz Hipper. And this is a fairly short scenario as these things go. I won't play it through in all probability because there's a fair number of ships involved, and that's, leaving out the lighter craft that accompanied the battle cruisers. Because not only are there quite a lot of steps to go through in each combat round, but there's an awful lot of dice rolling and an awful lot of record keeping. So I've set up the map as instructed by the scenario. Now, in a strategic game, when two squadrons meet each other, depending on the time of day you meet and how far apart you set up, your ships are usually turned face down, so it's good old fog of war. But because this is a battle scenario and both sides know in advance who's going to be there, I have not bothered on this occasion. So over to the left, I've got my bucket of dice, which as you'll soon see, I really will need. Got the rule book handy because it has the gunnery combat charts on it, specifically the one I was referring to so much in my previous video. And also because of the way the hit record sheet book is laid out, I took the liberty of drawing up my own earlier. There's only one thing I need to point out that's different from the scenario I played before in terms of how these work, and that's you'll notice some of the ship names are underlined. Now in the printed records these are italicized, and what this means is that the ship concerned gets a gunnery bonus. So I won't get into the fairly intense gunnery debates that surround historical discussions of Jutland. But suffice to say that in this scenario, in this game design, all of the German battle cruisers are basically crack gunnery ships. And on the British side, only Queen Mary is liable to land more shots. Or hits, I should say, rather than shots. So let's get going. I might bring the camera in, actually, because you don't need to look at the entirety of this huge map where not much is happening. Now, another thing I can say about setup is that you have to place all your ships, as generally speaking, together. So if you are a small force of 4 ships or less, you all have to go together. If you're a larger force, you have to start by filling hexes up to a maximum of 8 ships, and then you can spill over into the next hex. So most medium-sized actions in this game will be fought by clumps of ships moving together in a single hex. Now, the only thing that can make them drop out is if they suffer a speed loss due to damage and get detached from their formation. Otherwise, it's generally expected in this game that you stick together. So, tell you what, I'm just going to, forgive me, the light is a little bit better if I just shift the board down a little bit. There. Hopefully that did not cause too much interruption. Okay. So each game round in the tactical, in the advanced combat sequence, you follow a 20-step process, but it's basically the same thing repeated again and again until all ships of various speed classes have had a chance to move and shoot. Faster ships get to move a lot more than slower ships, which makes sense. And everyone does lots and lots of shooting. So to begin with, all ships on the initiative player's side, the Germans have the initiative in this scenario, all those with a speed rating of 2+ may move. That's what happens at the top of every round. Now, every German battlecruiser in Hipper's force has a speed rating of 2, so nobody moves. Following that, both sides get to shoot. Now, an interesting element of this advanced tactical system is that your facing does not matter. There is no penalty for having to shoot out of your bow arc or anything like that. And in terms of maneuvering, you're not restricted to maneuvering only into your front hexes. If they wanted to, they could have done 180 and gone over there. A bit counterintuitive to those of us who are used to more involved naval combat systems, but there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spread out the ships, partly for my own sanity, so that I don't have to keep unstacking them in order to see where what their gunnery factors are and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to leave the flagship of each side in the center of the hex they occupy. I hope that makes sense, just so that we know where the formation is. So as I say, the Germans have not moved because they don't have any speed +2 ratings. So instead, they're just going to open fire on the Brits. Well, it's the next thing in the sequence. Now, as with the basic game, you can target whoever you like. You can either engage the corresponding ship in the enemy line, or you can all focus your fire on 1 or 2 ships. As long as you declare before any dice are rolled, anything goes. So the Germans are going to be a bit neat about this, and they are going to attack the corresponding ship in the enemy line. So let me start with Lutzow. She is going to shoot at Lion because they were both the lead ships in their formation. And at a range of 3 hexes, the only weapons that are able to fire are the ship's primary battery. So Lutzow has a primary battery with 6 squares, so she gets 6 dice. And because she's got a good gunnery rating, she gets to roll, she gets to score hits on a 5 or a 6. I'm just going to back out a bit so you can see the dice rolls. So let's grab some dice. And Lutzow will open fire. All her shots miss. So then we move on to Derflinger, who will be targeting Princess Royal. She tries firing. 5 gives her a hit, so a shell has just hit Princess Royal. Let's see where it lands. A 4. That is a hit on Princess Royal's secondary batteries. Now, looking at this, Princess Royal doesn't actually have any secondaries, so the referred pain kicks in and it becomes a hull hit. Now, her hull is protected by heavy armor, but because she's been hit by the Derflinger's primary weapons, the shot penetrates. There's various ways you can mark this off. What I tend to do, because fire is supposed to be simultaneous and the effects of hits are supposed to be simultaneous every round, is I'll just put one line through the affected system or hull. And then at the end of the round, I'll just make it into a proper cross so that you know that the damage has taken effect. So first blood to the Germans, and Princess Royal has suffered a hull hit. Let's move on. Seydlitz is next in the German line, and she's got 6 dice worth as well. And she is going to target Queen Mary. Oh, I'll re-roll that one. No hits on Queen Mary. What about Moltke? Moltke is going to shoot at Tiger, so yes, the British do outnumber the Germans by 1 battle cruiser, but if the Germans stick to the pattern I've set, Indefatigable will be ignored for now. So Moltke on Tiger, here we go. Oof, 2 hits, all right. What locations have we got? I'll roll the dice together to save time, but obviously the different colours will let me pair them up. So we have a 2 and a 10. Ouch, poor Tiger. The 2 is critical damage, and the 10 is a hull hit. Now, thankfully, the range is a bit long for plunging fire. Is a bit short for plunging fire, so Tiger only takes a regular hull hit, but that critical damage could be rather bad. So I've marked off Tiger's hull hit, but I now have to roll on the critical damage table to see what's happened. Hopefully nothing too horrible. The Germans get a 6, which means she takes 2 more hull hits. Ouch. They must have hit something rather vital there. But at least the suffering is going to come to an end for the British this round fairly soon. The last German ship, the Von der Tann, is going to bring her somewhat weaker battery of only 5 dice to bear on the New Zealand. And she scores a hit as well. And she hits New Zealand in what is 3? Torpedo mount. Okay. That could have been worse. So the New Zealand has lost the ability to fire her torpedoes. So much for the Germans' turn. The British are going to get their own back now. Well, hopefully, assuming they land any hits. I think we will follow the same pattern the Germans have been have established with vessels targeting the corresponding ship. Now, because the British have an advantage of 1 ship in terms of numbers, Lion and Princess Royal are going to gang up on Lützow. So that will allow me to save time by combining their weapons fire. So Lion and Princess Royal. Ooh, that's 16 dice altogether. So here we go, poor Lützow. Although the end result of that storm of steel, because neither of those British ships are crack gunnery ships, is a single hit. Probably should have kept the rolls separate so that I could see which British vessel that hit could be credited to, but never mind. A hit is a hit. And that's area 5, whatever that is. And it's a hull hit, so Lutzow has taken her first damage. Next we have Queen Mary, who will be shooting at Derfflinger. Now I have to remember Queen Mary is the only British ship that gets the gunnery bonus and hits on a 5 or a 6 instead of just 6. So here we go. Ah, okay, she's only landed the 1 hit. Never mind, it's a start. I won't keep waving the location table in front of us because I think you've probably got the idea by now. So I'll just keep it handy over here so I can record and mark hits. So Queen Mary has hit Derfflinger in her secondary mounts. Now that shot definitely goes through because Derfflinger's secondaries are only protected by light armor anyway. So we next have Tiger up, and she's going to target Seydlitz. The British aren't as good at shooting in this scenario, but they do have larger gun batteries, which does compensate for it, and certainly in this battle their weapons had a longer reach. Trick was actually getting the shell to the target, as we're finding. Tiger lands a hit. And she hits the Seydlitz. In her tertiary armament. Not the most lethal of hits, but every little helps, I suppose. And next it will be New Zealand targeting Moltke. Now New Zealand only has a battery of 5 dice, which is not that brilliant. But she lands 2 hits. Best gunnery on the British side so far. And rather at variance with her historical performance. Ooh, 4 and 4. What has she done? Hit 2 secondaries on the Moltke. That was very fine shooting by the New Zealand. It effectively wiped out Moltke's secondary batteries. And lastly, Indefatigable is going to shoot at Von der Tann and gets no hits. So following the gunnery round, everyone's taken a shot. Both sides may engage in torpedo combat. Now, torpedo combat happens at close or point-blank range, so nobody's going to be firing torpedoes this turn. Also, because it's the end of a round of gunnery combat, I will go through my list and I will turn all of those into crosses because that damage has now taken hold. And as there's no takers for torpedo combat, the non-initiative player, i.e. the British, can now move any of their groups that have a speed of 2+. Now, none of them do, so nobody moved. So that was a subset of that round, and generally speaking, ships on both sides are looking a bit the worse for wear. The German hulls are pretty intact, but their secondaries have suffered a bit. The British are not doing too badly, except that poor Princess Royal has been hulled rather badly in the hull. But in terms of their fighting capacities, most of the British ships are still all right. So now we get to the next phase where the initiative player can move all their groups that have a speed of 2 or 2+, and the Germans decide that they're actually quite eager to close the range. So remember, they're occupying that hex. I'm using the flagship as a marker. So the Germans decide they're going to move in closer. So both sides can now bring their secondary guns into play. And the Germans are going to continue their pattern of targeting the corresponding ship as they did before. So Lützow lines up with her primary battery on the Lion first. Ouch, 3 hits. Okay. The first 2 hits, 3 and 6. Lion takes a hit to her torpedo mount and her secondary battery, which she does not have, so it becomes a hull hit under referred pain. And there was still a 3rd hit to resolve. 4. Another secondary hit, which she can't absorb because she has no secondaries, so that becomes another hull hit. Ow. And as if that weren't enough, Lützow's now going to follow up with her secondary guns. No hits. Derflinger's up next, and she will be targeting Princess Royal. Lucky for the Brits, no hits that time. Seydlitz is going to go for Queen Mary. Oh wait, hold on, I was forgetting something. Derflinger didn't have a go at Princess Royal with her secondary guns, and she hits with those. 7. Ah, okay, that is a hit on the primary battery. So good shooting on Derflinger's part. Unfortunately, as you can see, her surviving secondaries have gone and hit an area protected by heavy armor. So in this case, the shot simply bounces off. Secondary weapons can't penetrate heavy armor. So now we get to Seydlitz. And she is going to blast away at Queen Mary. Oof, 2 hits. I hope the poor QM doesn't suffer her historical fate. Ooh, 4 and 4. All secondary hits. Which Queen Mary doesn't have, so she has to take them on her hull. Then Seydlitz's intact secondaries are going to have a go. Another hit. And they land a hit on the tertiary armament, which is very unlucky for the Queen Mary, because in addition to the hull hits she's been taking, she suffers a loss of one of her tertiaries. Okay, that was a very good round for Seydlitz. What about Moltke? she's going to have a crack at Tiger. Ooh, dearie me. 4 hits. Okay. Poor Tiger. So 5 and 9. Hull and primary. So what that means for Tiger is there's another hole in her hull. Worse news is, from next turn onwards, she'll have lost one of her primary gun mountings. And it's not over because there's 2 more hits coming in. 4 and 9. Ouch, another hit on Tiger's primaries. And feeling rather good about herself, Moltke is going to have a crack with... oh no, she can't. Moltke had lost all of her secondary batteries previously. Okay, she'll give Tiger a break after that. And finally, we have von der Tann, who will be shooting at New Zealand. 2 hits. 9 and 7. Oh, both of those are primary hits. Poor New Zealand. And not only that, her main turrets are quite weakly armoured anyway. That's only secondary level armour. So New Zealand suffers a bit of a battering to her weaponry. And von der Tann is going to follow it up with her smaller caliber guns. Thankfully, no hits. So now it goes back to the British. Lion and Princess Royal will continue ganging up on the Lutzow. Now, although the range has shortened, the British still need a 6 to hit at this distance. Oh dear, only 1, despite all that concentrated fire. And that is a 6. That is a hit on Lutzow's secondaries. And next we have Queen Mary having a pop at Derflinger. And again, Queen Mary is a good gunnery ship, so here we go. Here's hoping. Ooh, that is rather good. 2 hits. An 11 and an 8. Oh, that was superb. The 8 hit Derflinger in the tertiaries, which he doesn't have, so it becomes a hull hit. But the 11 was a spectacular one. 2 hull and lose 1 movement. Now that's going to have a serious effect on the German squadron in the next turn. So, or in the next round of movement, I should say, because it slowed all of them down. Now, I could carry on with this, but I think, broadly speaking, you've got the idea of how this works. The sequence of initiative player moving, gunfire, torpedo fire, non-initiative player moving continues until every single speed category has had a chance to move. So the fastest ships will get to move much more frequently than ships with the lowest speed rating, which really is as it should be. But as you can see, in a single round of combat where you go from the fastest ships down to the slowest, you get an awful lot of gunfire by way of dice rolling, and an awful lot of damage will be suffered by the participants. When you get to the end of a sequence, I'll just let you have a look at the British to see what they've been going through. You see the hits are starting to stack up on them too. When you get to the end of a sequence, if the battle is still continuing, it begins to have an impact on the strategic game. So if you're not just playing a pure battle scenario, if there's a wider scenario taking place with units on the strategic map, you'll very often have to recalculate the timings of your units reaching for their destination. If a lot of damage is suffered, you'll have to readjust your orders sheet, sometimes to send ships back to port, sometimes to try you to reach your objective again, but only this time taking a different route, maybe a riskier, shorter route if you've suffered fuel losses, or even, as in the case of poor old Derflinger in this scenario, if you've had to have your speed reduced from a boxed 2 to a boxed 1. So it is a very involved system, much more involved than the basic one, even though it shares a lot of similarities with it. So I hope that's been fairly useful in giving you some idea of how the advanced combat system works in the Great War at Sea series. Just so you're aware, this is how it works in the Second World War version as well, with some tweaks to allow for the advances in gunnery technology and the increased speed of the ships involved. So hope that's been used. Hope you found it interesting and enjoyable. As ever, thank you guys so much for sticking with the series in particular and the channel in general. I always appreciate your company. It's really good to have you along. Massive greetings and a big wave to my veterans. Thanks so much for showing up, guys. I really, really appreciate it. And also for the feedback. It's really nice to get your comments. And as always, I'll endeavor to answer them as soon as I can. To anyone who's new to my channel, if this is the first video you've watched, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. If it's the Great War at Sea that's brought you here, please check out the 1 or 2 other videos I've put up about it. I will be doing more about this very interesting simulation of naval warfare. If it's wargaming in general that's got you here, then you're more than welcome. Please do step aboard, explore the channel. I hope you find something else that you'll find interesting. But whoever you are and wherever you're watching from, thank you so much for tuning in, joining me as I carry on my little adventure through this game system. And I really look forward to seeing you all on the next video. Take care and thanks again. Bye.